Boxing truth here. Errol Spence is not the truth if he goes life and death or struggles with Lamont Peterson next Saturday in his first title defense after becoming world champion. This is a barometer to how good Errol Spence is. This is an opponent to see how he measures up compared to other world-class fighters that have fought Lamont Peterson. Peterson's a veteran. Been in there with a number of named fighters, the Lucas Matisse, the Danny Garcias, the Amir Khans, few others. He's a solid fighter, but he's a smaller fighter. He's much older now, and he's been very inactive over the past couple of years for whatever reason. He's only had a couple of fights in the welterweight division. Not a big puncher. Not really the biggest threat for Errol Spence in terms of firepower. I don't see a danger to where Spence can get rocked, he can get hurt. Peterson is just not a big enough puncher, just not active enough, just doesn't bring the firepower. He's a smaller guy coming up, but he's a tough guy. He always comes in good shape whenever he does fight. He has a great gas tank, and he's a guy that likes to put pressure on his opponents. That's really his strong suit in the ring. That's his style. He can move around the ring, but that's not really his style. That's not his strong suit. He's not an effective boxer. Just watch the second half of that Danny Garcia fight. The first half of the Danny Garcia fight, my bad, where he tries to move a little bit. He tried to drown Danny Garcia. It was a good game plan what he imposed in that fight, but it was flawed because he started too late, and that's what cost him the bout. He's a guy that tries to outlast you. That's his strength, Lamont Peterson. He's a guy that has a good gas tank, and he brings a lot of conditioning to the table. The guy he's probably one of those rare fighters today that can go 15 rounds without breaking a sweat. Didn't even look like he broke a sweat in the Danny Garcia fight. And he was almost successful in drowning Danny Garcia in that fight. That's how he rolls in the ring. He tries to tire you out, and he tries to outlast you, and he almost outlasted Danny Garcia. If he had 3 more rounds like in the old days, he would have beaten Danny Garcia that night. But Errol Spence, there's a bunch of hype riding behind him from the American media. They all think he's pound for pound level, despite only one solid victory under his belt over a fighter that was coming off a knockout loss and completely weight drained going into the fight. He performed good in the fight, went overseas, had an impressive performance, stopped Kell Brook in 11 rounds, submitted him in a conquering victory on UK soil, becoming the IBF welterweight champion. It's been 8 months. Not the best come around after that type of win. Should have been more active. Should have gotten another date prior to this, but it is what it is. Heyman has a network problem. Doesn't have enough dates. Too many fighters. So now here he is fighting next Saturday against an okay contender, but not considered, I would say, a top 10 welterweight. Hasn't really done much in the division to warrant that position. He hasn't fought in quite some time as well, around the same time Errol Spence last fought. So they're both coming off long layoffs. It's pretty much the norm for Lamont Peterson. But this is a bad style for Lamont Peterson. It's a bad style because he's fighting a bigger, stronger, more powerful guy who is a pressure fighter. And the last time Lamont Peterson that I can recall fought a powerful fighter with a lot of firepower to the table, he was iced within 3 rounds against Lucas Matisse. So Lamont is a pressure fighter at best. The thing is, he doesn't have great punching power, but he sure does commit to his punches, but he's not the biggest puncher. But when he fights these type of strong pressure guys, it's really all wrong for Lamont Peterson. He can't outstrength them, he can't outpunch them or overpower them. So his only hope in this fight, especially according to the odds makers, is that he weather the storm early from Errol Spence, take him to the deep waters, and hopefully drown him late, like he tried to do Danny Garcia, but was too late in picking up the pace in that fight. The problem here is Spence is stronger, bigger, much more firepower to the table compared to Danny Garcia. So he's dealing with a bigger, stronger, more powerful guy who comes forward, puts a lot of pressure, goes to the body, very physical, much bigger guy compared to Lamont Peterson. So it's quite a mountain to climb for Lamont Peterson. So the style matchup favors Errol Spence. He's fighting a guy who at his best likes to put pressure on his opponents, which is what Errol Spence wants. He doesn't want to chase anybody down. He likes the guy to come bring the fight at him. It'll bring the best out of his style and abilities. But if he is what people say they think he is, he really should have no problem with Lamont Peterson next Saturday. This should be, I'm not gonna say it's a walk in the park. Peterson's gonna fight. He's not gonna lay down. He's gonna try to win the fight with whatever he got. So he's not gonna just submit easily. It's gonna take some doing. It's gonna take some time. But the thing is, if Errol Spence struggles with Lamont Peterson, if he goes life and death, then he ain't no pound-for-pound level fighter. He ain't no elite level fighter. He ain't no second coming. If he struggles with Lamont Peterson, I just go out and say it. He's a hype job. That ain't going to amount to shit. Just have a couple of decent title defenses and get whooped by Keith Thurman winning if he fights him. So I expect Spence to make some sort of a statement in this performance because the style matchup really favors him. And if he doesn't, then he ain't as good as I think he is, and he ain't nowhere near as good as other people think he is. He's a 25 to 100 to 1 favorite. So he's heavily favored. He's expected to win. The only question is, how is he going to win? It's interesting. That's the interesting part of this fight. How is Errol Spence going to win? Because we don't know enough about Errol Spence. He's had a career filled with certain level of opponents, the Phil LaGrecos of the world, light punchers. His best win to date is Kell Brook, so he didn't have the best build-up process when it came to his world title opportunity. Still need to see him with veteran fighters, movers, slicksters, bigger punchers, and guys that can punch while moving. Still a lot of questions to be answered, but I just don't feel Lamont Peterson is going to provide those answers. It's going to be interesting to see how he fights Errol Spence. Is he going to employ movement where he's not effective with that style? Is he going to fight his usual style where he's at his best and put pressure on Errol Spence to where he'll be in his wheelhouse and be constantly in his punching range and constantly be in danger? I expect Errol Spence to stop Lamont Peterson. Lamont Peterson was stopped the last time he fought a powerful fighter like this, and he was a smaller fighter, in Lucas Matisse. He's older now, mid-30s, close to mid-30s, inactive, fighting in a weight division one class higher than his best division, which was 140 pounds. He's not the best boxer. Lamont Peterson doesn't have the quickest of feet, not the sharpest. Got schooled by Timothy Bradley. Got iced by Lucas Matisse. Lost a close decision to Danny Garcia. He's a guy that just hasn't been able to get over the hump. And his best win to date really explains it. A tough fight with Amir Khan. That's his best win to date. That's pretty much signifies his career. He's a solid fighter, but he's just not that good and not at that level to where you consider him elite. I would say the best description of him is a gatekeeper who's held a world title at one time. But if Errol Spence struggles with this cat, then all those accolades he's getting are very premature. If he struggles with Lamont Peterson, Errol Spence does, he's not what you think he is. But I expect the stoppage win this Saturday for Errol Spence. The style matchup is very favorable to him. It's an uphill battle for Lamont Peterson. We'll see what type of fight he gives Errol Spence, what type of experience. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this fight. How you see Spence winning this. And do you see any chance at all that Lamont Peterson can actually pull off what will be a miracle upset, at least according to the odds makers? This is Boxing Truth. I'm out.